Good morning, everyone. So welcome to another session where I'm doing a interview with a guest that I'm absolutely privileged to have on board. We've had some brilliant guests over the course of the last few weeks talking about sales and business. I'm very glad that I've got a very inspirational man who is changing the lives of hundreds of people actually on the session with me today. Good morning, Alexander Seery. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. So let me just give a brief introduction to anyone that don't know you, and then I'll let you do the actual main introduction. Alexander is a best-selling author and is the founder of a business called Shift to Success. And Shift to Success is quite an incredibly innovative and unique company, and Alex is going to explain why in a moment. But I'm going to bring Alex on today, and we're going to talk a lot about niching in sales and how we want to niche to really know your market space. But before we do that, Alex, do you want to do a brief introduction of you and the business and what you've been doing for the last few years? Because it's a great story.
Sure, absolutely. So I'll probably take you back to first as being working in the police force. I used to work for Nottinghamshire Police, first of all as a special constable, and then I moved into custody as a detention officer. And all I ever wanted growing up was to become a police officer. However, when I was there and surrounded by officers on a more regular basis, I realized that actually I didn't want to end up like these people because the majority of them were miserable. And at the time, I thought about baking a cake. And it's kind of an analogy I always use where I could see these people who have been in the police service for 10 plus years. They weren't seeing their kids. They were miserable. They had anxiety issues, depression, there's politics, they're underpaid, they don't feel valued. And ultimately, this kind of caused a lot of stress and a lot of doubt in their minds. And I thought to myself, well, if I use the same ingredients as a police officer and I don't see my kids when I have kids, or if I, have pension changes or low pay or injuries or depression and go through the general day-to-day role of police officer, well, 9 times out of 10, if I mix that in and put it in the oven, which is the length of service, I'm going to get the same result. So for me, I decided I didn't want to do that. So I went into business, into the property industry. Long story short, built that business from scratch with no startup capital to about £1.5 million worth of assets, multiple 6-figure cash flow in business. And I was able to resign. As I resigned, though, I got a lot of people asking me, how did I do this? How did I build this business? And essentially, that's where the idea of Shift Success came about, and my book, which is called Police Officer to Entrepreneur. It's a business book aimed to help initially police officers to start and scale successful businesses so they can live life on their terms. And Shift Success is just that. We're a business training company that support now the public sector. Initially, it was police officers to build successful companies so they can live life on their terms, more income, time, passion. And for me, our mission at Shift Success is to enable and empower the entrepreneurial heart inside public sector workers. I don't believe anyone on this planet should sacrifice their happiness for a wage or pension. And I believe you can have it all. I believe you can have time, money, and doing something you love day to day.
And we're going to explain, we're going to explore more about the niche and the market of areas in a moment, because one of the things that I talk to people a lot about is to sale, is for successful selling, you want to know that space. But I think it's also, it's important to note here, and we should state here, this isn't about anyone bashing these public sector services. This is not about, before anyone starts saying, this is, Alex has got a niche whereby, unfortunately, there are, for whatever reason, hundreds of people at the moment, whether in the police service and police services. Let's start with the police, because that's where you started off initially. Unfortunately, you get contacted by hundreds of police officers saying they're unhappy at the way in which things are operating in the forces that they're operating in. And you've just provided us a niche solution to help them move forward and move things forward.
Absolutely. We're not anti-police or anti-having a job, but we're pro-happiness and pro-choice. And I think a lot of people, unfortunately, feel like, well, this is it. This is all I've ever known. And they kind of stay in their box. Ultimately, unfortunately, that deteriorates their not only mindset, but also their standard of living and impacts their family time as well. So absolutely, we're not, hating the police or anything like that. In fact, we need the police. I love the police. But unfortunately, some people find themselves trapped from the day to day.
And let's talk, and we will talk about the police side of things first, because I know Shift Success started off with that, and then obviously you moved into public sector. What do you think the importance is of, if you as a business training company, if you'd have started off when you were starting this side of the business, said, I'm just going to go after anyone and everything, do you think you'd be where you are now?
Absolutely not. No. So the power of a niche comes down to essentially effective marketing, but also where you can connect with an individual, right? And I think a lot of people as well feel like when they say the market, they forget that human to human element. There's the world of B2C, which is business to consumer. There's B2B, which is business to business. But now more than ever, we're on the age of H to H. That's human to human or heart to heart. And niching provides that element deeper on a deeper level. So the way I like to explain this is if we was all in a massive crowd and I was to shout and we couldn't see each other and I was going to shout, James White, right? You're going to look round. Now, in a crowded marketplace out there in the digital landscape we have, when I say, hey, police officers turn around to Shift Success. So not only does it have effective marketing, but ultimately that makes your marketing cheaper and also allows you to connect with your audience. And when picking a niche, I will say this as well, because this is a common mistake a lot of people make. When picking a niche, don't just niche down because you think it's going to be a great niche. You've got to know about your customers. You've got to learn about their problems, their frustrations, their challenges. What keeps them up at night? Where do they want to be? What's their outcomes? And if you don't know that, you're going to be very hard to connect with those individuals on a deeper level.
And it's true, and we've worked together for a number of years. And one of the things, is it also improves the sales element, because when you're selling to someone, if you start to talk about a problem, people only buy for, as you know, problem or one. And if you start talking to people about stuff that isn't of interest to them, it isn't a problem or one, they're going to be like, so. Sales is all about relevance in the same way as marketing is all about relevance. When you start talking to people about, are you experiencing these issues? Are you experiencing these challenges? Even if they're not, even if they are, but they don't want to admit it, something will go on in their brain that will go, well, what is this? And who are these people? I have got those problems. So it makes such a massive difference to have that relevance and make people think they get me.
Yeah, absolutely. And, as you said, if they are loving their jobs right now and they come across our marketing or the company, at least they know us there. And because we initially started with X and serving police officers, they start tinkering their mindset. Oh, well, there is an option B, and it's this. It's like, if I've got two dachshunds, right? Two little dogs. Now, they were naughty growing up. And if I wanted to have my dogs trained, I'm not going to go to just any dog trainer, right? If I see some, branding of a dachshund specialist, I'm going to be drawn to that because I've got dachshunds. And that's the power of it. I'm more inclined to reach out to an individual who I'm going to relate to and is going to have more effective marketing to me.
It's such a good point. It's such a good point. And for those watching this from a business perspective, people, and there might be some larger businesses here that are really thinking, oh, well, we don't need to niche, we're bigger and we don't need to. But one of the challenges I actually see with failed sales campaigns is because you get salespeople who unfortunately just don't know where they're focused. And the problem about focus is if you don't have a focus and a clear identity and a clear area to go for, you will just miss everyone. Whereas if you know what that audience is and that sweet spot, I mean, we used to talk about, you knew that the police officers in the police had this huge, like you mentioned, frustration about where things were, weren't they? I mean, I know you mentioned, when we first talked, you had some moments yourself when you were an officer that you were like, we called this, for anyone watching this, it's the FDE event. It was the moment where you knew you didn't want to do this anymore. So resonating and using that within your conversations meant you were able to build a business quite easily, not easily, but you were able to resonate with people.
Yeah, it's empathy. I understood what they went through because I went through certain situations and also building a community. So another powerful element to building a niche is that you can start to build a community with people just like them. So, if I'm building a niche with police officers, well, they're going to know other police officers. So that's going to help with referrals because they hang around with people just like them. But when you start to build a community, people start to connect on a much deeper level because they have that empathy. They understand what they're going through. One of our clients this morning has just handed in a resignation because of mental health suffering in the job. Thankfully, she's got a business she can start moving forward with. But the comments and the engagement and people reaching out, offering their support due to the community they're in because they understand what she's going through.
And so in terms of, Shift to Success, because obviously I know a bit about the business. For those that don't know, one of the things you've been incredibly successful at doing, you've now, I think you're nearly up to 200 police officers that have gone through your program, and there are hundreds more that are inquiring and looking at this. What is it about, the thing that you do at Shift to Success, you think that is resonating with so many police officers, and now obviously, as we'll talk about in a moment, into other members of the public sector as well?
I think the biggest thing that resonates with them is, as you may understand their problems, right? When I speak to police officers who are just inquiring about shift success, there's a common three problems that come up. As I mentioned, the lack of income, not feeling valued, not feeling worthy, not being paid their worth. Number two, not seeing their family, working every Christmas and New Year, annual leave being rejected, and just basically missing out on life. And number three is stress, anxiety, depression, mental health issues, injuries, politics, etc. And those three keep coming up time and time again. Now, when these stories are told to me, I can then pick out a story that one of our clients are going through and say, yeah, you know what, someone else has been through this, but now look at them. They've got a successful business, achieving six figures, and they're free, right? So it's kind of that, I understand your pain, but actually we can either stay in the pain or we can actually start moving towards a different life. And myself and the team will help you get there. But there has to be some work in there. Something I always say is you don't drown by jumping in the water, you drown by staying in it. And I think a lot of people aren't aware of that. And I think that change in thinking that it doesn't have to be this way allows people to see that kind of hope in the end. I think hope's a big element for a lot of people who are suffering with their jobs.
And you've got behind you on the wall there, I was looking at this, and you've got this great image, no pressure, no diamonds. And we know that there's this, this element of work ethic that has to be done. But also that's a challenge though, isn't it? For police officers that are going through maybe some, for whatever reason, that they've been through some mental challenges and stress of the job. And by the way, I've talked to a number of them, and what they see every day is quite, how they deal with it is incredibly different. But what, how have you responded to, because people have also said, well, actually they're in this safe job, they're in this safe environment that is, very easy, they've got a job for life, as it were. And I know some of them have said, well, I've got the pension in 20 years time, or whatever else, because there is that challenge, isn't there, for people to break free from where they're feeling right now to where they want to go, but moving away from the chains, let's call it, of a pension or of a security.
Absolutely. So one of the things we implement at Shift Success is we never encourage anyone to just quit their job. Essentially, they follow the same strategy that I utilized, where I built my business whilst working full-time in the job. So, we can build a business with limited financial resources. I've been there. I was broke once upon a time. However, what we can't do is build a business without time. So it's a bit of time management. And a lot of people on their, in the police, they'll call it rest days. I call them success days. So when I built my business, I didn't have rest days anymore. I had success days. I was building my business to ultimately get to my success. One key factor that they all implement now, clients of Shift Success, is that, yeah, they can have downtime, but actually they're fully aware if they don't use that downtime to work on their business ideas, they're not going to get where they want to be. And they're going to face, unfortunately, a rubbish pension, and they're probably going to have to go back into employment at the age of 65. So it's kind of, excuses or results. Do we want to, which one do you want to pick? And that's something we have of a value at Shift Success. You're not going to get anywhere in life without putting in the work. I think a lot of people out there in the business training world, the gurus out there, it's easy, follow this method, you'll get to where you want to be. I want to say business is freaking hard work. It's the hardest thing you'll ever go through, but so is working a job that's taking away cherished time from your family, waking up every day for a job you don't really want to work in. It's like choose your hard.
Yeah, and I think that's a really great way. And I love that. Choose your hard. Which ones you want to do, and how do you want to do it? But for those people watching this, in terms of you've obviously built a business. You didn't have a huge amount of. You didn't have any funding for the start. You've now built a successful recurring business, but you've also had to go through COVID. Challenge you, right? COVID was a massive challenge for Shift Success as a business, because you were just on that growth spurt, and then suddenly this whole world changed. So how have you been able to adapt to the changes that COVID have brought that are now giving you this incredible path of working with members of the public sector, as we'll talk about in a moment?
Absolutely. So just to give some context, I think for the listeners, is that we used to run a business where we had live in-person events. We had large events in person in Birmingham, and we can't do that anymore. It got impacted, right? And there was a lot of kind of chaos in the marketplace. Police officers putting more shift work in because they've got to kind of control the public from not gathering together. So there's a lot of kind of complexities. What we did as a team is that we thought of the worst case scenario, right? And in fact, I want to admit, I thought, COVID would blow over, right? And how wrong was I? And I'm glad, because, this analogy I always say, when an astronaut goes to space, they're not going, yeah, I'm going to see the moon, I'm going to see the stars. They're checking their equipment, they're checking their oxygen, they're checking their rations, they're checking their suit, their contingency planning. So for me and the team, what we said, right, this is the worst case scenario. What happens if we can't run events for 2, 3, 4 years, right? Worst case scenario. What if we can't have any events where we can't speak to people who want to join Shift Success? What are we going to do? In fact, how are we going to deliver value to those customers we've already got? So essentially, myself and the team gathered together and we had a good strategy session. And essentially what we did was convert everything to online. So now we've had a model where we have a traditional sale where someone joins and they have a 12-month accelerator. We've now changed to an ongoing, reoccurring accelerator to get them where they want to be. So instead of being time focused, we've changed to results focused and allowed people to go at their own pace. But there's got to be a cost element in that because it's reoccurring masterclasses. The mentors hop online. We have coaches now as a part of that. We have assessments as a part of that. And in fact, the results have actually got better because we can reach more people. As a result, we went global. We've got German police officers with us. And essentially, we've onboarded more people in 2020 than we did in 2019, which has been great for us. And I want to do live personal events in when we can, but from a business model element, the kind of the cap's been turned off, and more people have joined Shift Success as a result. So online's working great. We use Zoom, we use online portals, we have coaches. It allows me to work on the business more, not in it as much. And it allows me to, focus on the team we're building, which is we're hiring sales team at the minute. So yeah.
Cool. It's good. And look, before we move into the other side of things, you also created an incredible book. And if anyone's watching this that knows someone in the police or in the public sector, or knows someone, we're going to give away, actually, I think you've kindly agreed to give away 5 copies of your books. If anyone's watching this, that they know that is someone that is in one of those roles that isn't happy at the moment, especially if they're in the police. And I know you've got a new book coming out, which I'm sure you'll talk about in a moment, but that it isn't, there's a copy of Alex's book. Have a look at Alex's book, Police Officers to Entrepreneur. It's an incredible read and an inspirational read. And I know it's been, there's thousands of copies of that book that have now gone into homes and people's, cars or wherever it is all over the country. Just go back to that book. How big an impact do you think that book's had on your ability to be known and for Shift Success to grow as a business?
Pretty important. So I was known for the property industry. So I did talks all around the UK. I was featured in magazines and I kind of built my personal brand in that sector, but I realized I wasn't passionate about property. I wasn't, it was a great lucrative business, but, it's not something that, gets me out of bed every morning, right? So the book for me was kind of a stake in the ground to let everyone know this is who I am now and this is what I'm doing, right? And it kind of stopped the emails I was getting through property investments, want to do joint ventures and stuff, and it kind of gave me that focus as well. This is the direction for the vision of the future. From a marketing and niche point of view, it's highly been impactful. The reason being is that, and I'll say this all the time, my audience, police officers, are the most skeptical audience you can ever imagine, right? If anyone can make sales out there in whatever niche you're in, if you're not in the police officer niche, you're going to be fine, right? There's been challenges that I've had to go through because of the nature of their job. They deal with frauds and criminality and all that kind of, bad stuff.
They're used to seeing people tell them stuff all the time.
Exactly, right? So trying to get through that noise and build that trust was very important. And the book allowed me to get through that, allowed me to have conversations with people with when they're in bed, when they're in their homes, and I don't have to be present. They're reading my content and I'm not there. So it allows me to connect with people on a deeper level whilst I can crack on building the business. So it has been really key for me personally, hence why I'm writing the second book, because now we've expanded.
And talk about Alexander. So, one of the things that I talk to people, a lot about is that build that niche, build that space, build that area where you own. And I think it's fair to say now, Shift to Success, I think, owns the if you're a police officer, whether it's retired or currently serving, and you're thinking of going into business, and Shift to Success leads the way in a company that's going to help, and a community, actually, I'll say a community that supports you in that. But now, because you've got that gives you then a great position to then go and say, right, well, there are other members of the public sector, like the police, so like the NHS, unfortunately, people that like in teachers or military that are now opening up. And your next book is all about actually how anyone in the public sector can go and start living life on their terms as well.
Absolutely. And that's an important note. So a niche, depending on what type of business you want, is where you start, not where you finish. So for me, I always had intentions of niching and pivoting. So get a result in one niche, get well known in that niche, and then you can pivot to a different niche. Now, for us, when we started out, we had nurses reaching out straight away in the first year, right? So that kind of gave me that insight. And then we did some research on kind of nurses, doctors, the NHS. They have very similar problems, right? If not worse from a mental health point of view. Military as well, we've been reaching out, fire, teachers, etc., who we've got as well, and engineers. The new book, Shift Success, is about public sector workers, shift workers, in breaking free from a wage slave life to ultimately living a life full of reward and recognition. And it's for those who just go through the day-to-day, they pay for a house, they live out of every single day, they don't see their families, they are fighting with their spouses over finances and stuff. And it's for those people who really want to change, but they just don't know how, or they don't feel like they've got the skills to do so. So that's been written. It's with beta readers at the minute. I'm just getting all feedback for that. And it's going to be out this year. So
it's going to be exciting that you're now passionate about, helping those that have been, looking maybe enviously at Shift Success and say that's relevant for police officers and thinking, well, I want some of that. Are you going to change? How are you going to change your program? You're going to change your program to fit, to that new market? So, for example, nurses or fire, or you're going to change the program? Would you see that staying the same?
Yeah, so the accelerator is going to say, so the accelerator is not like a police accelerator, right? It's something, there's a niche that we help. Yeah, there's some terminology we say because everyone knows the police. But since the changes we made in 2020 during COVID, we've had engineers join, more nurses, we've had teachers join, we had military join as well. So, the accelerator can typically help anyone build a successful business, but we work with public sector workers. So I think from an accelerator feature element, I talk less about the police and more about having a job, shift workers, etc.
And one of the things that and I've been privileged enough to join you as a mentor and I as a sales mentor for the program, and you've worked with a number of other successful mentors and people that have been part of this. I guess that's what is interesting, isn't it? You're very much one I know for learning and for continually adjusting and improving and developing your mindset and your knowledge base.
100%. I think humility is a very good trait to have in business. Wherever I go in life, right? Whether I'm, 10 years ahead and, achieve my dreams, I'll still have mentors and coaches all around us, right? I took up golf in COVID. I've got a coach. I want to learn more about Facebook marketing. I've got a coach for that. Sales element, I've got a coach and mentor for that. And that's important to me because blind spots can cost you a fortune. You don't know what you don't know. And if your competition have that insight, well, you're falling behind, or you're running into obstacles that you could have forgone if you got that insight from a mentor. There's a great quote or Chinese proverb: to know the road ahead, ask those coming back. I'm willing to shorten my time frame for a cost. Money I can always get. I can spend thousands on getting the knowledge, but if I was going to piece that knowledge together myself, that would maybe take me years, where I can get that in months. And that's something I value more: time.
And that is a common issue, especially in my industry. As you know, I see a lot of people that will worry about investing, a few hundreds or thousands of pounds in an education process or a learning process because they feel like, oh, well, that just seems like a lot of money, and yet we'll carry on grinding and doing the things that slow them down. And how did you get that mindset? Because I know you had a story where before I know we've got could talk all day, but you've got to finish it, and we've got to finish at 10:30 in a little while. But you made a very, very brave decision a number of years ago with property, didn't you? With the last sort of set of money you had. Talk to people about that and why people don't make that investment in themselves, do you think?
Yeah. So just to go back, so I was 24 at the time. I was living with my partner and her mum, and we were saving for our deposit for a house to move out. And because of this period of my life, I realized I didn't want to become a cop anymore. I wanted to build a business, and I wanted to have what successful entrepreneurs have. I needed to learn the skills, the knowledge, the insights to get to my result, which was being financially independent. So I spent £18,000 plus VAT on mentorship. And it was a 12-month program. And I can remember when I signed that money away, true story. My old mentor tells this story all the time. I threw up, I got sick. I've never spent the money on something like that. It was, it wasn't a gamble or anything like that, but it was, looking back, I was thinking, Jesus, that was a bit of a risk. But I realized I'm 24. I've got no kids. I didn't have a mortgage at the time. I've got no real risk, and I feel like the risk of not taking that decision would be far greater. So I made that decision. Long story short, within 12 months, I was financially independent. And yeah, it was, top performer and, spoke all around the country. And I think the reason most people don't do that is there's a few things. Number one, they don't believe in themselves. And this is going to be blunt. Number two, their work ethic is not great. Okay. And number three, there's this side of their mindset where just because the social society we live in is this going to be a scam? Is this going to be a ripoff? Am I going to get from this what I want to get from this? And, there is some awful people out there, but you will get from a program what you put in. And even when I was on my program, the property program, there was people around me who didn't do anything all year, right? Nothing, right? And they were complaining. And something I always say, never complain about the results you haven't got with the work you didn't do. And I also see that in other business training programs, and I also saw it in other programs I've joined. So there's a few things going off. I think the fear of it not working far outweighs the fear of it working.
It's great, and I'm doing a session on Wednesday, and we'll put a link into the section here about about why you lost the deal. So I'm doing a webinar if anyone wants to join why you lost the deal on this coming Wednesday. And invariably you lose the deal because the mirror is your biggest friend when you lose in sales deals. And it's unfortunately your biggest friend when you're in business and when you're in these type of programs, investments. If you can't see it yourself, then that's probably part of the problem. You've got, and people buy things and they expect this miracle cure to sort of solve them, and it's not going to do that. It takes the work and it takes the effort. But look, it's been an absolute privilege to chat with you. We're going to come to the end of our session now, but for those that, well, two things. How can people we're going to put 5 copies of your Police Officer to Entrepreneur book, but you're moving now into the public sector. So again, if people know people in the NHS or in the the education space that are frustrated or just want to even look at options, then they should have a little tell them where they should go. You've got a Facebook group, you've got a number of areas where they should have a look at.
Sure, absolutely. So we've got a Facebook group which is Business and Support for the Public Sector. You've got my book, of course, which will be provided to us for the first 5. For the first 5 who don't get, the 6 onwards, you can find the book on Amazon or Audible. I've got the Shifts to Success podcast, some amazing stories from clients and also from business lessons that I implement on there. And also the Shift Success website, which is just.com, shiftsuccess.com. Instagram, Alexander Seery, and also Facebook at Alexander Seery.
Brilliant. And I know that, it's been, great to see, you're incredibly inspiring to lots of people and you share lots of those inspirational stories. You have your haters though. There are people that will, and I think you always say when you get those, you're doing okay, don't you? When people start hating you for what you're doing. Yeah,
I think there's a bigger problem when you're not getting haters. If you're not getting haters, you're not doing anything worthwhile. You've got to get, you've got to be polarizing. Whether you love him or hate him, Donald Trump, 50% of people love him, 50% of people hate him. Obviously love him because he came into power. You've got people like Mother Teresa, right? She did a lot of good in the world, but actually there's actually a lot of people who hated her, right? Adolf Hitler. People loved Hitler back in the day, right? Craziness, I know, but actually people hate him as well. So whether people love you or hate you, you've got to be true to yourself and what you believe and the work that you're doing. And also bear in mind that people who hate you are never going to be your people. And the more polarizing you are, you're actually going to build that tribe, that following, that niche. You're going to cultivate relationships on a deep level. And whether they love you or hate you, at least they know you.
Okay, brilliant. So absolutely amazing to chat with you, Alex, and thank you for your time this morning. I know you're a busy man, so there's lots going on, but it's been really, really good fun to go through this. As I say, if you really are watching this and you're thinking, okay, how's Alex built his business? Follow him on Instagram or on any of his social channels. If you are someone in the police or know someone in the public sector that think this could be of interest to someone, put a comment in the section below. We'll get a copy of the book through to you as well, or reach out to join it, and we'll put some links to the Facebook group as well. But look, it's you've built an incredible business by niching. You focus that niche, you own that niche now. Now you're sort of reaching out from there, and it's I'm sure it's going to be an incredible next few years ahead. You've got some big plans, I know, for what you want to achieve, and what's going to stop you getting there?
Nothing.
Love it. Awesome stuff. Indeed. Well, that's it from thank you to Alexander Seery, the founder of Shifts to Success, for his time this morning. Hope you've enjoyed these interviews. They're about giving you some insights into what you can do to get sales and business success and to achieve what you want from a business perspective. If you want to reach out to me, feel free to follow me at James White Sales, or the guys at B4 will have all my links to the membership sites. But look, hopefully you've enjoyed this, given some insights into how successful people are achieving great results. This one was all about niching. It's an important thing, and hopefully it's given you some insights as to what you can do to get the results you want for your business. So thanks for watching, everyone, and we'll look forward to sharing another one with you really soon. Take care.